year is 476 AD. A German chieftain named Odoacer stands over a boy emperor. The boy's name is Romulus Augustulus. He is the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire. Odoacer doesn't kill him, he simply sends him away. The imperial insignia, the symbols of power, are packed up. They are shipped east to Constantinople. It's a quiet end to something enormous. For centuries, Rome had been the center of the world. It was a beacon of law. It was a beacon of order. It was a beacon of power. Now the western half of that great empire was gone. It had crumbled into a collection of warring barbarian kingdoms. This was a world plunged into chaos. The old Roman roads, once humming with trade and legions, were now dangerous paths. Cities that had shone with marble and mosaics fell into ruin. This leader would come from the most unlikely of places. He wasn't born in a palace. He wasn't the son of a great general. He wasn't the son of a wealthy senator. He was born around 482 AD, in a small village in the Balkans, in what is now modern-day Serbia. His name was Petrus Sabatius. He was a peasant boy, speaking Latin as his native tongue. His future seemed destined for the fields, not the throne room. But he had one thing going for him. He had an uncle named Justin. Justin had left the village years earlier to seek his fortune. He joined the army in Constantinople. He was tough. He was smart. He was ruthless. He rose through the ranks, eventually becoming the commander of the emperor's personal bodyguard, the Excubitors. When the old emperor Anastasius died without an heir in 518 AD, Justin was in the right place at the right time. With a little bit of muscle and a lot of political maneuvering, the uneducated peasant soldier became the new Roman emperor. And one of the first things he did was send for his favorite nephew. Petrus Sabatius came to the capital. He was a young man with a sharp mind and a hunger to learn. His uncle adopted him and gave him a new name, Justinian. Justinian did not see himself as merely a ruler of the East. He was the Roman emperor, full stop. The lands of the West, Italy, North Africa, Spain, they were not lost. They were temporarily occupied. They were Roman lands, and he was going to take them back. This was not just about territory. It was about destiny, restoring the Imperium Romanum, the Roman world order. He dreamed of an empire that stretched from the sands of Syria to the shores of the Atlantic, united under one emperor, one law, one faith. This was a breathtakingly ambitious vision. The Vandals in North Africa, the Ostrogoths in Italy, the complicated politics and the stretched army. The obstacles were many. Many in his court thought him mad. They urged caution. They advised focusing on Persia and internal stability. Before Justinian could reconquer the world, he first had to save his own throne. The greatest threat he faced came not from a foreign army but from the streets of his own capital. In January 532 AD, Constantinople exploded into violence. The spark was, of all things, a chariot race in the Hippodrome. The Blues, the Greens. These were more than just sports clubs. They were political parties, street gangs, social networks all rolled into one. Justinian and Theodora were traditional supporters of the Blues. After a race, some members of both the Blues and the Greens were arrested for murders committed during a previous riot. They were sentenced to be hanged, but the execution was botched, and two of the condemned men, one blue, one green, survived and took refuge in a church. When Justinian refused, the two factions united against him. Their chants of "Nika, Nika" echoed through the city. What began as a protest at the races quickly spiraled into a full-blown insurrection. The mob went on a rampage and set fire to the city. Great buildings, including the original Hagia Sophia, were turned to ash. They attacked the imperial palace. Senators who hated Justinian for his taxes and his origins joined the rebellion and even crowned a new emperor. For 5 days the city burned. Justinian was trapped in his palace. His advisors told him to flee. It was at this moment of absolute crisis that his wife, Empress Theodora, stepped forward. She refused to run. "Purple," she said, "is a noble burial shroud." Her courage stiffened Justinian's resolve. He ordered his generals, Belisarius, Mundus, to gather loyal troops and seal the Hippodrome. With his authority in Constantinople secured by blood and iron, Justinian could finally turn his gaze outward. His first target was the Vandal kingdom in North Africa. The Vandals were rich from their control of the region's vast grain fields and their piracy in the Mediterranean. But their kingdom was internally divided. In 533 AD, Justinian saw his chance. He assembled an invasion fleet and placed it under the command of Belisarius. It was a huge gamble. The army was relatively small, about 15,000 men, and the sea voyage was long and dangerous. Belisarius landed his army in North Africa and marched on Carthage. He enforced strict discipline and paid for supplies to win over the local Roman population. Caught by surprise, the Vandal king Gelimer was outmaneuvered and defeated in 2 decisive battles. Within months, the entire kingdom had fallen. Belisarius returned to Constantinople a hero, parading captured Vandal treasure and King Gelimer himself in a triumph the city hadn't seen for centuries. Next, Justinian set his sights on the ultimate prize, Italy, ruled by the Ostrogoths. In 535 AD, Belisarius landed in Sicily with just 7,500 men. The war for Italy became a brutal 20-year slog that bled the empire dry and devastated the peninsula. Belisarius performed miracles. He captured Naples, then Rome itself, endured a year-long siege, and later took Ravenna and the Gothic king Witiges. But Justinian grew suspicious of his popular general and recalled Belisarius, starving the campaign of men and resources. Italy was eventually reconquered, but at a terrible cost. The land was a wasteland, a shadow of its former self. Just as Justinian's wars in the West were reaching a critical point, a new and far more terrifying enemy appeared. It did not carry swords or spears. It arrived silently on merchant ships, carried by the fleas on black rats. In 541 AD, the bubonic plague erupted in the port of Pelusium in Egypt. From there it spread with horrifying speed along the trade routes of the empire. It moved up the Nile, across North Africa and through the Levant, and by spring, 542 AD, it had reached Constantinople. The city was dense, crowded, unsanitary, a perfect incubator. The devastation was apocalyptic. The historian Procopius, an eyewitness, recorded that at its peak the plague killed 10,000 people in the capital every single day. The city ran out of places to put the dead. Burial parties couldn't keep up. Bodies were left in the streets and deep pits were dug across the Golden Horn. Bodies were stuffed into the towers of the city walls. The stench of death hung over the capital like a shroud. No one was safe. The rich died alongside the poor, the strong alongside the weak. The empire's economy ground to a halt. Farms were abandoned. The tax base collapsed. Construction projects slowed. The plague crippled Justinian's grand project. Armies in Italy were ravaged. Reinforcements dried up. The Goths launched a fierce counterattack and retook much of Italy. Even the emperor himself was struck down. For a time it was believed Justinian would die. He survived, but was a changed man. The plague of Justinian was one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, killing an estimated 25 to 50 million people and returning in waves for centuries. While armies fought and plague raged, Justinian was overseeing another project, one that would prove far more enduring than his military conquests. He sought to bring order not just to the empire's borders but to its very soul. Roman law had become a mess. For nearly 1,000 years, laws had been passed, amended, debated. The result was a chaotic jungle of contradictory edicts, scholarly opinions, and outdated statutes. It was almost impossible to know what the law actually was. Justinian, with his tidy and methodical mind, was determined to fix this. He appointed a commission of legal experts led by a brilliant jurist named Tribonian. Their task was monumental: to go through a millennium of Roman legal thought, sort it all out, and create a single coherent body of law. They worked with incredible speed, reading thousands of books, debating, editing, and binding the results into codices. They systematized the vast legal heritage of Rome, creating a new foundation for civilization itself based on logic, reason, and justice. The result was the Corpus Juris Civilis, the body of civil law, often known simply as the Justinian Code. It was made up of 4 parts: the Codex Justinianus, the Digest or Pandex, the Institutes as a textbook, and the Novellae, the new laws from Justinian's own reign. The impact was profound. It rationalized the Roman state, made justice more consistent, and administration more efficient. After being lost to the West for centuries, the code was rediscovered in 11th century Italy and became the basis for European legal systems. Concepts we take for granted today, like the idea that a person is innocent until proven guilty, have roots in this ancient text. While the empire would later crumble, Justinian's laws would shape the Western world for 1,000 years. In the aftermath of the Nika riots, much of Constantinople lay in ruins. The Hagia Sophia was a smoldering wreck. For Justinian, this was both a crisis and an opportunity. He would not just rebuild the church, he would build the greatest church the world had ever seen. It would be a statement of his power, his faith, the glory of his Roman Empire. He hired 2 brilliant architects, Anthemius of Tralles and Isidore of Miletus, masters of geometry and physics. He poured the resources of the state into the project. marble from Greece, yellow from Syria, black from the Bosphorus, and columns repurposed from Egypt and Ephesus. Thousands toiled day and night. Justinian inspected the site daily, driving the project with relentless energy. The architects solved the ancient engineering puzzle by using 4 massive arches, triangular pendentives, and 4 huge piers, making the dome seem to float. When the central dome was completed, it seemed suspended from heaven by a golden chain. It soared 180 feet and was pierced by a ring of 40 windows that flooded the interior with light. When the new Hagia Sophia was consecrated in 537 AD, Justinian reportedly walked in and whispered, "Solomon, I have surpassed you." The dome was covered in millions of gold tesserae, the walls lined with polished marble. The interior was designed as a spiritual experience, a vision of heaven on earth. For the next 1,000 years, it was the largest church in Christendom, a symbol of hope and faith in a troubled age. The Hagia Sophia still stands today in Istanbul, a testament to a vision of heaven on earth and to Justinian's ambition. Justinian died in 565 AD after a reign of 38 years. He left behind an empire dramatically different from the one he had inherited. On the map, his dream was a reality. The Mediterranean was once again a Roman lake. North Africa, Italy, a piece of Spain, monuments and the Justinian Code endured. But the comeback came at a staggering price. The decades of war had emptied the treasury. The plague had shattered the population. The newly reconquered lands were devastated and difficult to hold. Within a few years, much of Italy was lost again to the Lombards. The empire was overstretched and exhausted. In the next century, the empire would face the dynamic threat from the east, the rise of Islam, and lose Syria, Egypt, and North Africa. Emperor Justinian is most often remembered by the title Justinian the Great. Historians gave him this epithet because of the scale of his ambitions and achievements. He was the last emperor to truly think and act like a classical Roman. He spoke Latin as his first language and saw the world through the eyes of an Augustus or a Trajan. He was a restorer and an innovator. In trying to restore the past, he forged the future. The empire he left was Greek-speaking, a Christian fortress state centered on Constantinople, the shield of Europe for the next 800 years. His true, lasting achievements were made of words and stone. The Justinian Code provided a blueprint for justice and order that outlived the empire itself. The Hagia Sophia still stands as testimony. Despite the devastations of plague, war, and financial strain, his reign is often considered a golden age of the Byzantine Empire, hence why he is remembered as Justinian the Great. Subscribe to the Swarthy channel for more hidden history.